guys, my name is Savannah and welcome to or back to my channel. This is the first video of mine that you're seeing. I post lots of book videos and also post vlogs here and there. But yeah, in today's video, as you can see from the title, we are doing my October wrap up. Books next to me in a stack in the order that I read them so that I don't forget, but it keeps falling over onto me, so I'm trying to find a position where I can keep them. Anyways, I'm super excited to talk about my October wrap up for a few reasons. First of all, I almost completed my October TBR. I read 5 out of the 6 books that I chose for myself in my October TBR jar video. The one that I didn't get to was the second book in the Good Girl's Guide to Murder series because I just didn't find myself in the mood to read a second mystery, unfortunately. And towards the end of the month, I kind of felt myself approaching a book slump and I really wanted to avoid that at all costs. So I did not want to force myself to read something I wasn't in the mood for. While I only read 5 out of the 6 books on my TBR, I did end up reading more books this month than I have ever read in any month prior, I think. Up until this point, the most books that I ever read in a month was 12, and then in October, I read 13. So I'm kind of proud of that. Anyways, let's talk about those 13 books and go through all the things I liked and didn't like about them and what I rated them. Oh, but maybe I'll tell you guys some stats first before I do that. It was a very fantasy heavy month. I read 7 fantasies. I read 2 romances, 2 nonfiction, 1 general fiction, and 1 YA mystery. Does that add up to 13? Fingers crossed. Okay, now let's actually talk about all the books I read. First book I finished in October was Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas. This is like the 5th book I've read in the Throne of Glass series. And it's insane how with every book in this series, the series just keeps getting better and better and better. I think it's because you get to know the characters more and more and more, so you just become so invested. This book also had the most romance out of any Throne of Glass book so far. So many huge things happened. I just loved the way it ended. In November, I will be reading the tandem read, which is like the next 2 books in the series. So I'm just so excited to continue this series. I give that 5 stars, by the way. Next, I read Killer Instinct by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and I had such a fun time reading this. If you don't know what the Natural series is about, basically it's about a group of teenage prodigies who have been recruited by the FBI to help them solve cold cases. Yet somehow their lives start to get very intertwined into these cases that they're solving. I loved how in this book they're solving a new case, but the relationships and friendships between the Naturals are growing and developing from the first book. If I remember correctly, I think I liked the first book slightly better than I liked this one, but I still really enjoyed it and I gave it 4 stars. Okay, then I read One for My Enemy by Olive Blake, and that just made the lighting really dark because this book is so bright. Anyways, I was so excited to read this book because I'm a big fan of Olive Blake's writing. I really liked Masters of Death and Alone with You in the Ether. Unfortunately, this is probably my least favorite out of the 3. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars, so obviously I still really enjoyed it. This is Romeo and Juliet retelling, except it's an urban fantasy set in New York City, and all the main characters are witches. I really enjoyed the Shakespearean aspects of this book with how dramatic it was, how we dealt with yearning and love and betrayal. But the aspect of this book that I didn't enjoy as much is I just found myself getting really confused, and I kept being like, am I missing something, or was this just written weird? I kind of felt like things were just left unexplained here and there, so that's why it didn't have a higher rating for me. Oh my gosh, this book was such a wonderful, pleasant surprise. This is The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston, and I was expecting to like this book because I did really like The 7-Year Slip, but I wasn't expecting to adore this book and give it 5 stars. I read this book really quickly. I think I maybe read it in one day. I loved the main characters in this book. It felt so cozy and comforting, yet the main characters were going through very serious, very challenging things, so it felt like it had a lot of depth. The main character, Florence, is a ghostwriter in New York City, and she unexpectedly has to fly home to her small town when her father passes away. Her and her father have a very unique gift where they are able to see ghosts. And while she is home for her father's funeral, her editor shows up at her home as a ghost. So, very interesting setup for a story. I adored it. And it was really perfect to read in October. And then I read another amazing book. This is The Last Chance Library by Freya Sampson. This is about a librarian named June. And for June's whole life, her entire life has revolved around her town library. This book also has a very sweet cast of characters who depend on the library for various things. Unfortunately, the library might get shut down, so all these people have to come together and fight for this place that is so important to all of them and has been there for all of them when they didn't have anything else. It's the most wholesome book I've ever read, and I think I said this in another video, it's so sweet and so wholesome without being boring. I wanted to know what was gonna happen, and I wanted to know what they were gonna do to save their library. I ended up giving this 4.5 stars, and yeah, I loved this one. I continued to channel the really cozy, wonderful fall vibes and read The Pumpkin Spice Cafe by Lori Gilmore. I was seeing this book everywhere, so I felt like I needed to be a part of the hype. The author of this book is a huge Gilmore Girls fan, so the town in this book is totally Stars Hollow vibes, and the main characters are very much Luke and Lorelai. I totally recommend this book if you're looking for something not too deep, not too serious, that will make you feel warm and cozy. I read this book before bed, and it was the perfect book to read before bed. I ended up giving it 3 stars because it wasn't anything show-stopping, never been done before, but it totally did what it needed to do for me. I listened to a couple of audiobooks on Libby this month. I love the Libby app, and if you guys don't have it, I totally recommend you get it. You just plug in your library card information and you're able to check out library books on your Kindle, and you're able to check out audiobooks. It's literally the best thing ever. But one of the audiobooks that I listened to was Untamed by Glennon Doyle. I love listening to memoirs and that type of thing on audio because oftentimes the author reads it, and I think that adds a very fun personal touch to the reading experience. This was a book that I already knew and already loved, but I hadn't read it for a few years, so I wanted to read it again, and this time obviously listen to it. If you don't know who Glennon Doyle is, she's had an extremely interesting life, and her book is kind of like a collection of essays of lessons she's learned and life experiences she's had, and I really enjoyed it for the second time. Okay, then I decided that I wanted to start the Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy on my Kindle. For a while, I honestly thought I was not going to read that trilogy before I went into Carrie Maniscalco's new series that she's doing, but I've heard a couple people recently say they really liked it, so I thought I would give it a try, and I'm actually really glad that I did because I really enjoyed the first 2 books. The first one was Kingdom of the Wicked. I gave it 4 stars, and then did I end up reading Kingdom of the Cursed? Maybe I gave that one 4 stars too. Let me check. Yes, I gave both of them 4 stars. I think I maybe liked Kingdom of the Cursed a little bit better, so maybe I should bump that up to 4.25. But what I really enjoy about this series is it's YA fantasy, so it's super easy to read. There's some themes in there that I'm like, this actually YA? Like, how is this YA? But basically, there are these 2 twin witches who live in Italy. One of the twins, Vittoria, gets murdered, and Amelia goes on a quest to solve the mystery of her murder, which results in her running into the 7 princes of hell and forming some kind of connection with one of the princes, Wrath. Yeah, like I said, super entertaining, super easy to read, such page turners. Super excited to read the 3rd book in the trilogy and see how Carrie Maniscalco finishes up this trilogy. Yeah, this really was a month of YA fantasy for me. Next, I read 6 of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, a duology that I've been wanting to read for literally so long, and I can't believe it took me so long to read it because I became so obsessed. The characters in these books are now some of my favorite characters ever. These are going to be books that stick with me forever, and I will definitely be rereading at some point. The beginning of this book was a little bit confusing for me because there technically is a trilogy that takes place in the same universe by the same author that chronologically comes before this duology. I did not read it. I don't think you need to read it at all, but it may make you a little bit confused for the beginning of this book like I was. But I've heard some people say they weren't confused at all for this book, so I think it depends. In this book, the 6 of Crows have to complete this crazy deadly heist for an insane amount of money. Every character has their own like little special talent and gift that they'll use to try and get this heist done. But yeah, both of these books were such page turners because I was always dying to know what happened, and they're also so beautifully written. I ended up underlining and tabbing these books because there were so many quotes that I just know I'm gonna love revisiting. Okay, another Libby audiobook that I listened to this month was Beyond the Wand by Tom Felton. I've been rewatching my Harry Potter movies for like the 20th time, so it just felt like the perfect time to read his book. If you don't know, Tom plays Draco in Harry Potter, and it was so fun to listen to his experience of making the Harry Potter movies and to know what was going on in his life outside of those movies and after they wrapped filming them, because I didn't know much about him as a person before listening to this book. I definitely recommend it to Harry Potter fans or anyone who's just like interested in learning about his life. I didn't rate it because I feel like it's kind of hard to rate nonfiction, especially when it's stories about people's lives. And the 13th and last book that I read in October was Wisteria by Adeline Grace. This is the 3rd and final book in the Belladonna trilogy, and I absolutely loved reading this book. This is definitely my favorite out of the 3. I was a little bit scared because if you guys saw, I read it in a reading vlog recently. I wasn't obsessed with Foxglove. Maybe I'm forgetting, but I honestly felt like not that much happened in that book. But this book made up for it. I loved the way Adeline Grace wrapped up this trilogy. This trilogy is a YA fantasy series that gives very like gothic Bridgerton vibes. In the very first book, Belladonna, the main character is Signa. And in the 2nd book, she's pretty much the main character again. But in the 3rd book, the main character is her cousin Blythe, and I love reading more about Blythe's character and her love interest. Also, look how stunning this book is without the dust jacket. I'm obsessed with it. Yeah, I gave this book 4 stars, but same sort of thing that I said about the Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy. I liked this one a little bit better than I liked Belladonna, so I think I need to bump it up to 4.25 because I gave Belladonna 4 stars. Okay, and with that, the sun is going down, so I need to wrap this video up. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please comment down below what your favorite book that you read in October was. I think my favorite was maybe Crooked Kingdom, but I also loved The Dead Romantics and Queen of Shadows. If you don't want to miss more fun book content from me, also please subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in my next video. Bye!